Hello. Thank you for coming to Humanity Matters at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. Today, my podcast is always about humanity through art. I have the most special opportunity personally in my lifetime is to present Rabbi Tobi Rubinstein, because she not only empowers the divine feminine, but she became a rabbi later in life, and what she has merged is faith and fashion. And so I would like to introduce Rebbetzin Rabbi Tobi Rubenstein.
I like all those titles. Those are good. I wear a lot of hats.
Thank you. But before, I want to tell you why, for so many reasons, you are so special to me. On a personal level, as a teacher, I always have a chapter a week where I make the students do their final on women missing from the Western canon of art, because the women have very special stories to tell that make the art course or their studio class much more powerful, because what women have to say is so incredible. But what makes this even more special for me today, before I let you tell us about faith and fashion and present your two books, is that my mom, rest her spirit, always had a way of finding the best rabbi in Rebbetzin. And what my mother found, and the reason I'm mentioning, my mother was an interior designer for the 5 towns. Her rabbi, Rebbetzin, that she never stopped talking about was Esther Jungreis. Yes, Rabbi. So I'm mentioning, my mama is in the room right now with us, because she never stopped speaking about the way she dressed, which is also in your book. I couldn't put the book down.
Thank you.
It is an incredible read, but you see, Rebbetzin Jungreis, who was a survivor, my mom would say, you know, her face is beautiful, her clothes, but the way she spoke and her spirituality. So why I'm saying this is because this is the kind of woman that ushered you in. I don't know, but I have to now let you please tell our audience the power of a woman. I lived my whole life as a professor in art about this, and then how could I have met you through Queen Esther, as she almost segued you into this?
Yes,
Thank you,
did.
Esther.
Thank you, Esther. Well, I'll start off by saying that you mentioned someone extremely powerful in my life who made a huge impact in my life, and that is Rebbetzin Jungreis. May she rest in peace. I even have an essay in my book about her. You know, I think that she was probably one of the most influential women in presenting Judaism through the vision of a woman. She was probably the first of her kind to really give empowerment to what a Rebbetzin is, to actually be able to take over Madison Square Garden. She was a very, very powerful source, and she was very powerful in my life. So I'm honored that you'd even put us in the same sentence, honestly.
You're absolutely
she
in
was
the same.
amazing in the way she dressed, and her outfits and her persona was just everything. So I'm really honored that you put the two of us in the same sentence. So that to start off a conversation like that, I'm almost intimidated, because she was a real powerhouse in my life.
No, Rabbi Tobi, no. The reason I say this, and I say I waited my whole lifetime to meet you, how this happened is what we call beshared. Because
yes.
women that, every woman goes through betrayal, and every woman, for some reason, on every level, dims their light. And now comes Rabbi Tobi and exalts us and say, why are you dimming your light? Not only do you not have to dim your life, but it raises faith. And from a woman that comes like from you and comes from the inheritance of Rebbetzin Jungreis, you have so much to heal us and give us medicine today.
Wow. I'm getting more intimidated as I keep going with this conversation. But I should be a doctor. I should add on. I should go to medical school after this now.
It's healing. Well, this is why Dr. Bernie Furshpan, this is what he wanted from me. He knows I'm crazy about art. He knows it's the power to heal, like Louise Hay would say, heal your life. But I believe we could heal our life through art, fashion, faith, real estate, you name it.
Right. I agree. Well, the only thing I can tell you is my little corner of the world, which is the House of Faith and Fashion. I built the House of Faith and Fashion, which is where I reside. And it is fusing the combination of faith together with fashion, which normally would be something that are two opposing forces. Because when you think about fashion, you think about everything vain and just totally on the surface. They don't really go together. And then when you think about faith, you think about everything spiritual and majestic and holy. And I really built the House of Faith and Fashion to tell you that they not only do they have a relationship, they have a multi-level relationship, and it all starts in the Torah. And I realized that this unique space that I built for myself to be a female Jewish rabbi that was raised as a yeshiva girl that has been in the fashion industry for 45 some odd years, I realized that it's a very unique fusion that I have in myself, and I built this mission around it. And I'm very happy in my space. I'm very happy teaching people and helping people elevate their fashion to a higher state.
Well, I think it takes, we people don't realize these things don't happen in 1 year. You graduate and, it all comes. No, it's decades. In fact, the older you get, the better you get as a bottle of wine. But I remember reading your book, by the way, what a way you write. It's a conversation.
Yes.
It's amazing. But you did mention in your high school how they said you were going to shop. Right?
Well, I was voted.
You were voted
in my high school as most likely to shop.
Right.
Which was a pretty low bar and kind of insulting.
No.
But I took it in a different direction.
No, and I want to, because what I'm always doing with my students, I have to take the whole semester to undo the damage that was done. And when I'm always looking for a person, and I didn't get a chance to spot you in the crowd, but Esther spotted you and said, Rabbi Tobi, you are going to love her, is that why I mentioned that as a metaphor, everybody inside, if we go back to when we were young, before the veil, we remember the veil up until 11, you love clothes. But what that was is your medium. It was your paintbrush. Your paintbrush was fabric and textiles. I know because my husband was in the textile business. I met him through Tommy Hilfiger, and it was very important. So for example, I can't take my eyes off the way you're dressed, but I want to mention it because in your book, it was a term you used with leopard, to protect. So, Rabbi, you felt you wanted to be protected. It's quite intimidating to walk through this center, come into HMTV. As you say, you don't come out the same. Anyone who comes here to have a conversation, your life will be changed. So you intuitively, faith and fashion, wore protection on your leopard. You did that with your line with leopard, but you call it a different name.
Well, I have to tell you a funny story about leopard, which actually should just. I actually wore leopard because I just love the Zimmerman skirt, but that's my fashion speaking. I was once on a podcast, and the moderator asked me, "Well, what's a basic thing that every woman has to have in their wardrobe?" And I said, "You have to have an animal print." So, and then I challenged her. So I'm going to challenge you.
Okay, please. Okay? I'm on the spot.
Who designed the animal print, the leopard print? Who was the first designer?
I would think a woman.
No, God.
Ooh.
God designed animals. It started in Bereshit. God's atelier was built when the world was built. And designers have been trying to copy God from the very beginning. And by the way, this person that I asked the question to was a very Hasidish girl. And she was startled because she was naming every designer and she was saying, I don't know, maybe it's Yves Saint Laurent, I'm not quite sure, was it Givenchy? And she was getting she was dropping all these couture names to impress me. And then when I told her Hashem, she was actually stunned and embarrassed. I was like, how you
fail at this question?
How did you fail that question? But you see, that's what people don't understand.
That's right.
Like, for instance, this whole relationship that I had with faith and fashion really started because I went to an exhibit at the Met called Heavenly Bodies, which was the most beautiful, gorgeous, right? You've been there? I mean, it was stunning.
It was part of what I was going to reference. That
it was
it's shared
the
here.
vestments of the Catholic Church
right.
and all the designers' interpretations of faith and fashion, and it was really exquisite. And it was based on Catholicism, and I was enamored by the Pope's vestments downstairs as much as I was enamored by Dolce & Gabbana's interpretation. I thought it was beautiful. But when I left there, I went, wait. There's a missing piece here. You got to start with the first couturier, the master couturier, and that's God.
Wow. Yes.
So the relationship between clothes, I mean, biblically I can name so many things, the high priest's outfits. There's 2 chapters in the Torah about the high priest's outfits, which you could really appreciate because even the tapestry is instructed by God. The wool, the dyeing of the wool, the exact shades, the linen, the gold tassel trim of the Kohen Gadol, because he had to make noise. There was pomegranate trim. This was all designed by God. So the fact that we can think that, maybe Karl Lagerfeld had may he rest in peace, had the best, atelier on, in Paris, is nothing compared to what God has designed.
Well, it's so amazing because I probably waited my whole life to meet you, and interesting to be here because I could share with you, loving my culture as a Jewish person.
It's not a culture.
Okay, religion.
It's not a culture.
We're
We're a people. We're the nation of Jews. We're not the culture of Jews.
I felt uncomfortable because I fell in love with that exhibition, Christianity and the Christian imagination. And I said, wait a second. I give my students, because the only way I could talk about God is when I go to the age of faith, and I'll ask them to do a tattoo, but I'll give them this. I did a very extensive keynote of that, and it's like, whoa, because you can't talk God in New York State curriculum. But I was able to get it in, and I went back to that show 5 times, and that show, got more people.
It's the most attended show in the history of the Met.
Attended because the power of what you talk about. Do you want to show our listeners your books? Because I need a storyboard.
These are my 2 books. Actually, this is the first one, which is The House of Faith and Fashion, What My Wardrobe Taught Me About God. And my second one is called Hot and Holy, which is really a continuation. And they're a collection of essays that fuse together. The first book is all Torah related. It's all biblical Judaic thought. And then the second book delves into the other religions. Like I go into Christianity, I go into Islam and Hindu to bring it all in because, I wanted to expand. But going along what you had just said, I have a great advantage I have an affiliation with St. Thomas University, which is a Catholic university in Miami, and they have the only faith-based fashion school. And I have aligned with them, and they have been my sponsor on so many things. And I laugh when I started my relationship with them, going, okay, so I'm an Orthodox woman who happens to be a rabbi who's teaching faith and fashion in a Catholic school that has a Chabad on the campus, and usually a nun who says a prayer that starts the program. But I'm allowed to talk about that. And that's why I have such a freedom, even though I'm in a Catholic university, I have such a freedom of speaking about faith and fashion that it's glorious that I went, it's almost like I went full circle. I went from being pissed off basically at the Met and then feeling completely free at a Catholic university. And so that is, to me, that is just so ironic for a yeshiva girl. So I embrace the strangeness or uniqueness of all these forces around me.
Well, I just feel like I went to heaven today because this is what I've always wanted. I never got the chance to be fully creative and integrate because I do believe that the values of this country are Judeo-Christian.
They are.
So if we could come together and come back to what our founding fathers did, we would be healed. Tikkun Olam would just be, let it come back. So to hear this, and this is my only way where I could speak, because I always wanted to do a course in creativity and to speak, but you have done it in spades. There's so much to talk about. And selfishly, I would like to know, how did the ancient women from the Bible dress? And I know there's a story in Torah when they wanted to kill the children, the firstborn, so the men did not want to have sex with their wives because they didn't want to procreate. But from what I remember, they looked into the silver so the women could adorn themselves and lure their husbands so they could have children.
Okay, so I'll just correct, or I'll do
Correct.
a little.
Definitely
I'll
do
just do
correct.
a little
My-
correction
Oh,
on
please,
the
because it's my
stories.
imagination to make it.
But but I'll start with this. God has a dress code. God gave Jews a dress code, and that's called modesty. There is a way that God instructed us to dress, basically what to cover up and what to expose, because we are the daughters of the King. We are majestic. We need to dress that way, and as like a beautiful painting, there's security around the Mona Lisa. You can't go in there and just touch it. That's the way we're instructed. You can't come near, you can't touch me. I'm covered and I'm majestic. I'm not easily approachable. You can't come
Touch
near
me.
Well, it's a dignified way, but it's really, if you could think of like somebody like Kate Middleton, you're the princess. You're the daughter of God. And therefore, that's how you should dress. So there are laws about what to cover up and what not to cover up. So there are laws of how to dress. Now, what you're referencing to is during slavery in Egypt, which because of the environment and everything that was so difficult, that the Egyptians made so difficult, the men really didn't want to have children anymore. And actually, it started with Moshe's parents were going to get divorced. And it was little Miriam that demanded that they stay together because she was already a prophetess. She showed a prophecy since age 5. And she said, no, if you get divorced, then you're going to destroy everything because my brother is going to be born and he's saving us. So this little 5-year-old already knew what was going on. But what you're saying is they had brass mirrors, not silver. Okay. They had brass mirrors in the apple orchards. And after they had all of a day's work, because they were slaves as well, it wasn't like they didn't stay home and make apple pie, basically. They would seduce their husbands in their apple orchards because they looked at themselves in the mirror to beautify themselves. Those copper mirrors were then transferred to be made into the washing basin for the Kohanim in the Holy Temple. And even Moshe said, how can you use something so vain to put it into something so holy? And God said, that is the holiest thing that there is. And actually in the temple, that was the only thing that grew and never stayed in its original dimensions. As the Kohanim became larger and larger, the washing basin became larger and larger, and it grew. We as women also grow things, and we become larger and larger, and our basin gets larger because we could have children. So Judaism is, I could cry because there are so many instances. Like I know that Esther spoke about, Esther Muller, who was your guest beforehand, spoke about it, that really in just every aspect you could think about, there is such an empowerment for Jewish women. So when people say to me, oh, but you're religious, aren't women second-class citizens? I'm like, no, you don't. You obviously don't know what you're talking about.
So I'm never jealous about anything, but I am because I know you give Torah with a woman's point of view. And for me, the divine feminine is something that has been stampeded, betrayed. Everything that you could do to a woman horribly has been done. And you, 2 parts. You want to talk about that, but you also said that in order the Mashiach to come, we're going to need more strength from the women.
It wasn't me. It's actually the Rebbe. Okay. The Rebbetzin Rebbe said that it'll be women that will escort in the Mashiach.
How so, Rabbi?
Because it'll be the power of the women that will do. Well, I don't know. Can you tell me, did men do such a good job so far? Is he here?
No.
So okay.
No, because I think
they were in leadership. So did you do such a good job?
No, my friend Virginia Graham, the first talk show host, she was my best friend. She said, Ranelle, God made one mistake. He undercooked the men. If he would have cooked them 24 hours more, it would have been better. So, Rabbi, it's so true.
I'm not a man basher for sure.
I'm not a man basher.
No, I'm not. But as far as in leadership positions, if somebody like the Rebbetzin Rebbe, there hasn't been yes, who has who hasn't been duplicated, or who's a great giant in every which way, and who is, people still believe he's alive. Definitely his teaching is alive. If he would say that, then you can basically take that to the bank.
Well, I didn't mean to be disrespectful.
No. I'm just saying it's not.
Do we have to pray? We're not required. They have to do tefillin. There's a reason. There's a spiritual reason, right, Rabbi?
There's always a spiritual reason, but I would like to say, look, when people approach me with like this combative issue, like it's usually people that are not educated in Judaism but seem to be educated in feminism. And there's a big difference between Jewish feminism and feminism, but that could be a whole different.
That'll be our next talk.
That'll be our next talk.
Thank you.
They would say, women, why can't you wear a tallis? Why can't you put on tefillin? Why aren't you davening 3 times a day? Why am I not counted in a minyan? These are questions, and they're usually because they want to startle you. They'll say, you'll be like taken aback by what they're saying because you'll feel, oh my God, you're so right. I feel so diminished, and poor me. And no, sweetheart. No, I want to ask you a question. What is more valuable, a 10-carat perfect diamond or 10 little diamonds that are 1 carat that are imperfect? What's more valuable? So our mitzvot are so valuable that they equal what a man has to do. And a man, usually it's because they need. I think, it's my personal opinion. I'm not gonna quote anybody. I'm gonna say it's usually opinion. It's really to keep their ego in check. As far as things have to be much more pagination. They have to. It almost like a pageant in what they're wearing, and and it seems to be that way. Whereas women don't really need that. So if we don't really need that, that means we're less. That doesn't make any sense. If I only need 1 perfect 10-carat diamond, does that mean I'm less of a person because I don't want these 10 1-carat diamonds? Or we'll say, 613 mitzvot versus 3. So if I had a perfect 613-carat diamond, I don't feel so low and not valuable. I mean, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Interesting. So
I don't want to be when I graduated seminary, rabbinical school, I graduated with a lot of women. And I graduated a school that was specialized in the Army and Army and the Navy, in the Armed Forces. So chaplaincy. So there's a class when you graduate, and everyone's making their taluses and doing the perfect knots on the bottom according to halacha. And there was a tefillin class, and there was a put on a talus and laning class. I skipped all of that, and the women were so upset with me. And they were like, why aren't you doing this? Like, I don't understand. Why don't you want to know how to put on tefillin? I said, I'm not interested in putting on tefillin. I don't want to be. I am not interested in being a man. I am not equal to a man, and I'm fine with that. That's really okay. That doesn't mean I'm less, because I'm not the same. It doesn't mean that. So I don't know where that came from, because we're so entrenched in this society that everybody has to be equal, and and everyone has to be opinionated and equal in every which way. And that's not true. You're really taking away people's individuality by making everybody the same. We're not the same. And you know what? I'm really okay with that. I don't want to be you.
Beautiful. Well, time's up.
Oh, it is?
But I want to say to everyone that Rabbi Tobi is not just faith and fashion. In her book, you'll see, which I made a storyboard up, you see someone who could curate and has a very sharp eye. That's why I put together her jewelry. But it's not just her jewelry, it's how she shot it and how she finds beauty in it. So she is a Renaissance woman of faith, fashion, and art. She's the ultimate female artist, and I say that with so much respect. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in to Humanity Matters Through Art. I would just like to end with how can we reach you, Rabbi Tobi? Where can listeners reach you?
I'm not really referred to as Rabbi Tobi. I'm really
to me.
I thank you. I'm Tobi Rubenstein. First of all, thank you so much for this podcast. It's beautiful. You have a beautiful studio, a beautiful facility. This museum is exquisite. The environment is really, really. It's exquisite and professional, which is really profound. It's a great combination. So thank you. You can find me. I have a website, thehouseoffaithandfashion.com, which you can get my books. You can also get my books on Amazon. You could follow me on Instagram, and if you really want to know me, you could listen to my TED Talk on YouTube, on the TED Talk channel.
I have to have you back again because I had a question, some good questions.
You had some good questions?
Yes, but thank you so much.
And you asked a lot of good questions, Don't sell yourself short.
I have
you
such
did.
a good one also. But I want to thank you, Dr. Bernie Fershpan, for giving me the opportunity to give healing and medicine to people through creativity and to not dull your light. Be creative and keep creating. Thank you so much. I'm your host, Ranelle Wolf. Humanity Matters Through Art. Thank you.